What I've got for you today is supposed to be an amazing game of StarCraft 2. It's time for a Terran versus Zerg where we find ourselves on the map Hard Lead. Spawning right here in the top left-hand corner, playing with the red Terran as CVs from South Korea. We're looking inside of the main base of Cure. And his opponent in the opposite corner, once again apparently going for the extractor trick opener with blue Zerg drones. We're looking at none other than Serral's main hatchery. Now I casted these two facing off against each other on a map called LowkoTV Station not too long ago. Now spoiler alert for my own video. I mean, I know you guys watch literally every single one of my videos, so it's not really a spoiler. I guess more a reminder, right? You guys wouldn't ever skip a video of mine. At the time, it was Cure who came out victorious against a man who really doesn't lose Zerg versus Terran at all. Now, LowkoTV Station is a bit of a funky map. Serral decided to play Mutaling Bane. It looked pretty solid, but Cure was just simply the better player. Cure is an absolute legend when it comes to playing, well, StarCraft 2 in general. And while he sometimes may get overshadowed a little bit by some other Terran players, Cure really is amongst the very best that we have in StarCraft 2. And there's no denying that he is an absolute menace when he is on fire. And lately, he certainly seems to be on point once again. Now, right from the get-go here, I like this. He's decided to go for a command center first. Not playing the map, not even really playing the matchup, but he's playing the opponent. Serral does mix in early game aggression from time to time, but how many times is he gonna go for like a, I don't know, a super quick spawning pool with gas right from the get-go too? It rarely happens. As a matter of fact, recently Serral has been a big fan of that 15 supply hatchery, so you do an extractor trick, then you go up to 15 out of 14 supply after canceling the extractor. You make a hatchery, do another extractor trick to get the overlord going, and then eventually you get yourself that spawning pool out. The main advantage here is that your queens come out about 10 to 12 seconds earlier. So compared to the, well, 16 supply hatch into 18 gas and then a 17 supply spawning pool. I mean, we're getting really into the details here, but your queens, they pop a little bit earlier and it's a bit easier to defend against that Reaper aggression. There's really not a whole lot that the opponent can do. And I would imagine actually it's also a little bit easier to protect against, for example, proxy barracks, right? Proxy barracks, not a very popular build at the highest level currently, but it's one of those strategies that will never leave the meta. Somebody like Bjorn, for example, I've seen him do it recently in a series against Solar. Somebody like Bjorn will pretty much always, at the very least, consider building a bunch of wrecks on the other side of the map. So, command center first is gonna work out just fine. Alright, I thought for a second, I didn't see Jimmy there, sorry Jimmy. You faded into the background. I thought for a second, you decided to go straight to reactor as well on that barracks. That would have been kind of amazing. But no, he did make a single unit here, because otherwise we would be in a lot of trouble against even just 2 Zerglings. Now, are we gonna go for Cyclones, Cure? That's what he did last time. Yep, there we go. It still looks a little bit cursed to me to see Cyclones coming up 2 at a time out of a factory with a reactor on it. It's only been about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks or so at this point, since they've been able to do that. But of course, this unit, it essentially got a full rework, and the Cyclone is definitely a unit that requires special attention. Let's just leave it at that. Now, Serral needs to be very careful that he does not lose his queens. That's one of the things I've noticed. If you lose any of your queens, the tempo advantage that Terran gains from that Cyclone opener is absolutely massive. It's not so much that the queen is not replaceable, it's just that your creep spread is going to be hindered so much, it just gets slowed down so much that it's difficult to fight the Terran against their, well, follow-up attacks. It's not so much the cost of the queen itself, it's the, I guess, the opportunity that's lost. Ooh, now this is a little bit different though. We've got double factory over here with Hurricane Thrusters coming up too. So Cure is actually just gonna go... Okay, so I think he was probably scouting for an overlord. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention there. I'm not exactly sure what he was doing with that barracks, but he decides to go into a battle mech unit comp. Now this is something that Blizzard tried to achieve, or maybe the Balance Council, maybe not so much Blizzard, because they seem to be pretty hands-off when it comes to StarCraft 2 these days, but anyways, this is one of the things that the new Balance patch is supposed to achieve. It's supposed to make Battle Mech once again a viable option. Now Serral recently mentioned on his stream that he doesn't think Battle Mech is particularly good, so I guess we'll find out what his answer is going to be against this Cyclone Hellion-based unit composition. Now this is a new upgrade that brings those, well, Cyclones into a bit of a faster movement speed. We are going into Stimpak as well, though. Oh, okay. So, this is a Battle Mech start, but a transition into Bio with, I guess, double siege tank production? Very interesting. So this is an upgrade. I believe it's 100 minerals, 100 gas. It increases the speed of the Cyclone. Certainly not bad, but so far these units really haven't paid for themselves yet. One thing you run into is that when the armies grow, Zerg will just absolutely trash the Cyclone if they're not one of the units that is controlled, you know, with utter perfection, right? It's one of those things where if you kind of just attack move or you're not paying attention, these guys are like paper planes. They get shut down very, very easily. Serral hiding a bunch of roaches over here. Very dangerous. Honestly, I think Kira may have noticed it. Yes, lovely catch right here by the Terran player. He loses one of those. Yeah, you gotta be careful though. You see what I mean? He loses one of those Hellions right from the get-go, and then one of the Cyclones also goes down. Oh, it's because the Marine was hiding over here at the Watchtower. Very cute little play right there by Kira, making sure that he can see the roaches hiding in that location, although the Watchtower really doesn't give you that much vision. Yeah. You can just barely see it. It doesn't really provide that much. Serral now, though, running across the map with a whole load of army. He's gonna need some units at home as well to defend against these Cyclones. In the meantime, roaches over here are gonna be met by siege tanks and a bunch of Marines. Like, Serral's looking at this point too, and he's like, wait, what's going on? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So this is going to be a bio-based transition. Cyclones are gonna sacrifice themselves right now in the main base of the Zerg. In the end, it's really only 2 drones going down. They did kill a bunch of queens, they did kill an overseer, and, well, 7 roaches as well. So maybe resources lost-wise, it's not so bad right here for the Terran, but cool start. Not exactly sure if I love it. It's just going to be mass siege tank production from here, though. So, yeah, we do have a Marine transition here with double upgrades and stim pack and combat shields and all the rest of it, but for some reason we decided to start off this game with some Cyclone play. And I can imagine we're very much still in the experimental phase of this patch, right? I can imagine that Kira is just messing around a little bit, trying to figure out what the best approach is. Maybe he saw something from the opponent that triggered him to not go into that mass battle mech style that we ordinarily at least used to see back in the day. Ooh, okay, there are quite a few siege tanks though. I was gonna say, there's no way that Roach Ravager army can push in. I really like the way that these siege tanks are positioned in a line as well. There's no way that Zerg is really gonna be able to engage that properly. So, what is Serral to do? Well, first off, a fungal growth over here. That infestor was made originally, I think, for the Cyclone army, to try and maybe catch those off guard. Cute little play right there, morphing into Ravager, but nice targeting as well by Cure, making sure that it's not going to finish. Alright, Hive is coming up, together with a Lurker Den. +1/+1 upgrades have finally started as well, together with Zergling speed. So look at this production tab. This production tab, if you would have shown me this a year ago, I think I would have really scratched my head, because it really didn't make a lot of sense, and it still is a little bit confusing. But this is a 2-base Roach Ravager opener with a load of queens, bunch of Cyclones, forcing out the roaches, and then ultimately it's a transition towards, well, Lurkers and I guess, well, Lings and Banes? Maybe that's where we want to go here eventually, because I just don't see how Roaches and Ravagers are going to be able to win this game in the long run. Yeah, we start up some Hydra Link production here, so it's probably going to be Hydra Link Bane. But, yeah, with Lurkers and Vipers and maybe some Infestors for support. But the ways that we get there these days, they're very different than even just a year ago. Well, I say even just a year ago. I know that entire esports have probably come and gone in that amount of time. But StarCraft 2 is still going strong after all these years. Alright, so +2/+2 right here for Cure. If he does want to make a transition back towards Battle Mech later, or just full-on like Ghost Mech or something along those lines, having the second factory and some of the upgrades done is going to be kind of nice. He's now already firing up the +1 armory upgrade too, so that's the attack upgrade for the siege tanks for now, but if he wants to go into Battle Mech later, or some sort of mech at some point in the game, it's going to be kind of neat. Anyways, for now, it's going to be that very normal transition. So as soon as the 4th base is about to be acquired, usually when you have this base set up, that's usually when you add on the Ghost Academy together with 3 more barracks, and then these 3 additional barracks are going to grow little tech labs on themselves. And then you start pumping out the Ghost. Drop Lords in the meantime on the other side of the map. We don't have Pneumatized Carapace done yet, but it's going to finish in a moment. That's that Overlord speed upgrade. Lurkers do have their Seismic Spines upgrade here done too. Keep in mind that Lurkers are nerfed a little bit, and, well, the same can be said for a lot of the other late game Zerg units, like for example the Infestor. Its fungal growth ability right now has 1 range less than it used to be. On the flip side, though, the Terran Ghost now also takes one additional shot to kill, for example, an Ultralisk. Although this really isn't a game where you would want to go as Ultras, I don't think, as a Zerg. I don't think that would be a great choice. And obviously, the Brute Lord has also gotten a rework too, so... You're actually anticipating this move. Yep. Serral wants to go. He's actually scouting ahead of this drop. Alright, he wants to go for a Lurker drop into the main base, but the Vikings were waiting for it. Missile turrets are set up over here too. I think Cure was not necessarily prepared here against a Lurker drop in the main base, but probably against a Nidus network that would maybe connect the Zerg's main towards the Terrans. And, well, that's not going to happen. What we do have over here, though, is a nice little move by Serral. Okay, getting some good abductions in, but it's gonna come at the cost of all of those Vipers. All 2 of them. I don't really like that move. No, it's not my favorite. I mean, these Lurkers are in range, I suppose, and are gonna try and inch their way forward. The Adaptive Talons upgrade is not done yet, so that's the upgrade that got nerfed. It's now a little bit cheaper, but also less powerful than it used to be. It's gonna allow those Lurkers to reposition a little bit easier. Yep, so there's the Baneling Nest. So we are gonna go Hydraulic Bane with Lurker, Viper, Infestor for support. It's just that we started with Roaches and Ravagers. You know what? That may actually be the role of Battle Mech here in the end. Now, here's the secondary transition that Cure is doing. Generally, we see at least one of the two, so either Ghost or Liberators. Now we see both here, which I do think is a really good choice. Serral actually decides to step forward, even though he only has one Infestor as far as spellcasters go. You know what? He may have scouted out some vulnerability right here in the Terran's defense. Okay. I was gonna say, that seems really risky. So, against Lurkers, Ghosts are, effectively unchanged. It's actually kind of interesting how unchanged the Ghost is overall. It really is only in this matchup affecting... Well, the radius, obviously, of the EMP is a little bit lower, so that means that the Ghost has to step a little bit further forward to, for example, EMP and Infestor, but the EMP on the Infestor doesn't really matter, because the EMP... the Infestor also needs to be closer to the Ghost to be able to cast the Fungal Growth, so I don't think it really affects it all too much. And really, the only units, as far as I can tell, that need an additional snipe now is the Roach and the Ultralisk. Now, you're not going to make Roaches at this stage in the game, and you're also not going to make Ultralisk at this stage in the game. So, the Ghost really, mostly as far as this matchup goes, unchanged. We do have the Lurkers once again attempting this, but Serral moving forward over here at the front as well. I think this is the first time he's showing Banelings. He wants to get here before the Planetary Fortress finishes up, and he does actually kill it right there with one final Baneling. At this point, Cure's economy really isn't anything to write home about. Yeah, he's got a big army. Yeah, he's got tons of production. Yeah, he's got decent upgrades. But he only has 4 bases of mining, and that's exactly why Cure now decides to go for a move. His army supply count is bigger here than Serral's, so there's definitely a good chance he's going to be able to get something done here. That Infestor is not going to have an easy time. So there's Ghost, Lurker, Siege Tank. This is one hell of an army, guys. Very, very difficult for the Zerg to shut this down. Good scans over here as well reveal those Lurkers. Those Lurkers not really able to reposition nearly as easily. Serral, though, is going to try and collapse on top of this. He sees that the Ghosts are out of position. Blinding Cloud goes down on the Siege Tanks. Banelings are hunting for those Marines and Marauders, but with 5 less hit points, they're not going to be able to close that distance. And yeah, the Marine Bio Army here, it just stands strong. He's not even going to need his Marines here to finish up that hatchery. Lovely engagement right there by Cure in the end. Even though I do think that Serral right there had a nice jump on his opponent, the numbers worked out in favor of the Terran. Now the Zerg's reinforcements are coming up though, and Cure has got to be careful here he does not overextend. He is retaking that base over there as well in the middle, so he is going to go for a 5th. This is by no means an all-in right here for the Terran. Here's the second wave of Swarm. Do we have enough to clean all of this up? Keep in mind that we didn't start this game with, well, melee units, right, for the Zerg. So +1 melee is only finished right now, and that once again means that Cure can stand here for a little bit longer. Adrenal Glands was researched, but those links, they just simply don't deal as much damage as they ordinarily would at this stage in the game. If this would have been a straight Ling Bane army for the Zerg, like we see so very often, and I guess you can't really do that so easily against the Cyclone opener, but since this wasn't straight Ling Bane, he's got a bunch of missile upgrades that really don't help him all too much. I mean, the Bio Army shouldn't be standing in the spines. The Hydras do deal a little bit of supplemental damage. But other than that, this Zerg army is up with its back against the wall. 5th command center right now has grown a nice planetary fortress on top of itself, and Cure is looking mighty powerful here. Now, he was contained on just 4 bases. That seemed to be Serral's entire strategy, but now Serral is gonna have to adapt. I don't think this is quite a situation where Terran can just go for the throat here and win the game. But there's no denying right now that Cure does have a 5th base up and running, and he'll be scouting out additional command centers here, I'm sure, very, very soon. That's usually what Terrans do at this stage in the game. Although obviously this is the new meta. We do have what seems to be a few additional orbital commands, but not quite as many as we have seen many times over the last half year or so, right? Where they just end up going for like 10 additional command centers. You go up to like a dozen orbital commands. Okay, Cure, this is a high-level move. Cure has made the executive decision to go back home. I think it's the right call, but I'm not convinced that it is. I think he's a little bit concerned that he's sitting out there in the middle of the map, close to the Zerg side, and that he's just gonna get, well, surrounded either by every single angle possible, or that he is gonna get fully counterattacked. You don't generally want to base race a Zerg player very often. It's certainly something that can work out in favor of the Terran, but it makes the game a lot more chaotic. I think at this point, Cure is thinking, yo, I'm in a fantastic spot. I like this situation. I'm gonna go ahead and just chill and sit back home here instead. I wouldn't have minded, though, maybe seeing those Liberators go after the site and try to go after some more of the drones. Because ultimately, Serral's still mining right now with 90 workers, and yeah, well, some position was lost, a base was lost over there. The majority of those workers were saved. Now we do have the command centers coming up, together with a Greater Spire, as well as Neural Parasite. Tactical Nuke on the production tab. This game, okay, we've got a little bit of everything. 2nd Armory coming up, and more factories. So we are gonna go from Terran Mech into Terran Bio, into Ghost Bio, into Ghost Mech? Is that what we're doing? I think that's what we're doing. It could even be for like the potential just, right? That you need like Thors, for example, because this is an army rather, that is relatively vulnerable against, well, Brute Lords, right? Brute Lords are a little bit quicker now. I mean, you can't really fight them without Thors as easily from what I've gathered. Still a little up in the air. It's not like the Ghosts are gonna be a bad unit against the Thor whatsoever. Or sorry, against the Brute Lord. I mean, be interesting against the Thor, I suppose. But anyways, here's a man on a mission. When they put their guns away, you know they are ready to go in for a tactical nuke. Where's he gonna go? Oh, he's gonna nuke the natural. Interesting. You may want to finish up some of the tech over here, and well, this is gonna allow him a nice bit of vision as well of that Greater Spire. There he goes, towards the natural expansion. In the meantime, there's a top right-hand corner engagement as well. Serral moving in towards the left. He's gonna give up that base, and he's gonna give it up, I guess, for a command center. In the meantime, tactical nuke has landed. This is a proper game, man. I love watching high-level StarCraft. It's so much fun, especially in macro games like this, where now we are, well, 18.5 minutes in. I think I like Cure's position a little bit better overall, but it's really hard to say. And there's definitely a little bit of Zerg bias coming in. I've been playing some ladder myself, and I can't really get anything done, it seems. Late game Zerg has never been that good for me, and this patch has not helped me out very much, but Serral is an absolute legend, and I think he must actually feel pretty comfortable. I mean, he's got 10,000 resources in the bank. There's a sneaky little infestor over here, too. He's still moving on the left side. Okay, a couple of nice snipes, though, lined up right here by, by Cure. But in the meantime, okay, here's that fight. I'm just gonna back it up for a moment here, because I may have missed the juicy fungal growth. So this is about 10-15 seconds back or so. So these ghosts are gonna move on over here. They're gonna snipe a bunch of those lurkers, and then we have a fight over here in the top right. For some reason, it decided to back off more than 10-15 seconds. But anyways, are we gonna start this fight with a fungal? You gotta unburrow. Yeah, he's gonna try. Okay, catches quite a few of those units. But Serral actually decides to retreat there. He does not want to, yeah, put his more vulnerable banelings in a position where they are exposed. 16 SCVs, though, did go down to the top right-hand corner, but hatchery over here is going to get cleaned up by the ghosts, and all of those lurkers have also disappeared. And I think those lurkers are probably more costly than the 17 SCVs that we just saw going down. Inferno Pre-Igniter, Smart Servos. We've got all of the late game upgrades coming up. One important change that is actually very impactful is the change to the Hellbat. This is something that people don't really talk about very often. Actually, hold that thought. We'll get to it in just a moment as Serral is once again rushing forward. Tactical nuke flying on over towards the bottom left-hand corner as well. Banelings over there clean up a small chunk of bio units. And Cure has just plummeted as far as his bank goes. I mean, he's been harassing, he's getting a good bit of damage done, he's using tactical nukes, but those trades in the top right-hand corner have not been going his way whatsoever. And whereas Serral is still sitting at 10,000 resources in the bank, Cure's bank just plummeted. Now, obviously that's because he's making so many upgrades and he's been adding on so many structures and he's building up his infrastructure. So he definitely... yeah, we'll definitely have to reassess that in a few minutes from now, but Serral's bank is looking a lot more impressive. Here's what they've changed about the Hellbat. Nobody's really talking about the Hellbat very much, but I actually think it's one of the most significant changes for the late game in favor of Zerg. In the past, the Hellbats used to one-shot Zerglings with Blue Flame and +3. Nowadays, they will no longer be able to do so at all. It's always going to take them at least two shots to kill a Zergling. That means that Lings are actually a more viable choice than they once used to be. Serral right now, though, seeing this transition, decides to go into 12 Corruptors. Playing the dance, going from Lurkers into Brute Lords is, yeah, definitely gonna be something that's critical for Zerg. Making those constant tech transitions and keeping Terran on the back foot there, trying to... yeah, this is not the army you want to make. You don't want to be making siege tanks against this whatsoever. He's definitely seen the Greater Spire. He just hasn't noticed any Brute Lords coming out just yet, so he's not really prepared to fight the Brutes. There's definitely a chance that suddenly we will see a dozen Brute Lords coming up. There we go. 9 Brute Lords morphing in, and they could certainly... 12 of them. They could certainly catch the Terran player here off guard. Liberators, decent, but only really in very large numbers. Ghosts, I mean, they have to be stepping a little bit further forward. Well, actually, no, they don't. Just for EMP is when they have to step forward, but they're not as reliable a choice as they once used to be. We don't quite see Terrans going up to 20 plus ghosts, at least as of late, but maybe that's something that will change and will come back. I secretly hope not, but it's still certainly a nice unit to have here. Okay, look at the Brute Lords though. The Brute Lords, the Brutelings. Okay, first off, the Brute Lords themselves, they are faster. The Brutelings, however, die quicker as well. And they're just, oh my god, they really do feel a lot quicker here, don't they? The Brute Lords themselves are faster, but the Brutelings are weaker overall. Meaning that they ultimately function a little bit closer to the way that Guardians function in Brood War, in StarCraft 1. So the idea is that you can dart in and out of engagements a little bit easier, but yeah, you gotta be so careful. The Thor, still certainly a very formidable target against the Brood. A couple of Blinding Clouds over here are gonna clean up a few more siege tanks. This base over here is gonna be very difficult for the Terran to acquire. Okay, that's more SCVs going down. Very slow reaction right there by Cure, but that's because he was moving on the left side. And, well, he does kill a hatchery over there, but that hatchery is not nearly as important as those 20 SCVs and Planetary Fortress in the top right. Okay, so Thors are coming up right now, but this might be the moment where Zerg could think about, well, even going into Ultralisks if you want to, right? So the Brute Lords, they force out Thor production, at which point another unit for Zerg may be the right call, and you can play that back and forth the entire time here as Zerg. Because the Terran really doesn't want to be making mass Thor against like a lurker-based army. It just doesn't really work nearly as well. Terran's actually bleeding out. I mean, he's bleeding out with a near maxed out army, solid upgrades, and a ton of infrastructure and production, but he needs a new mineral line very, very soon. So he's decided, I think this makes a lot of sense, yeah, he's decided to fly one of the orbital commands from the main base on over. Once again though, some free units getting picked off over here. Cure maneuvering around the map with Hellbats and a bunch of ghosts and whatnot, as if his army is as mobile as Hydraling Bane, which it really isn't. Fungal Growth? Okay, well that's an option too. Neural Parasites here being set up. We have some of those anti-ground circles now helping out too. Fungal Growth over this little, what do we call it, a crevice? I don't know what you want to call it. Anyways, what is going on here? I have no idea. There's like a Thor being warped in. What in the world is that? Anyways, very cursed is what it is. So the Thors, they outrange the Brute Lord. But obviously when there's lings in front of them and they can't step enough forward or far enough forward, or maybe the brute lings are blocking their pathing a little bit, it can get really, really messy. Serral's strategy effectively has been to just throw as much stuff at a wall as possible and to try and trade as efficiently as he can. So at this point he's lost about 5,000 resources more than the opponent. But obviously he's been mining significantly more too. Okay. That nuke was really just there to scare off and force those brutes to back off. The real answer right here from Cure has been this base over here on the left. And I think he should have taken this one a little while ago. Serral apparently feeling confident that he can continue fighting this. And he may just be right. The positioning right here of all of these units seems a little bit suboptimal. The Thors just can't really get into the right places easily. And that's that planetary fortress going down. So maybe Cure is gonna find some more money over here on the left side of the map, but if it comes at the cost of a command center here in the middle, I don't think that really works out. And once more, I've seen every single Zerg struggle in the late game as of late. Once more, I think Serral is putting on a masterclass on how to play this. Constantly hitting his opponent at so many different angles at once, playing a super fast game as well, and clearly outpacing the opponent. Effectively containing his opponent on a small economy, right? Or at the very least he's trying to. It's a strange contain. We're not digging a moat around the Terran's base or anything like that. We're not making sure that they can't get supplied anymore or whatever. We're just hitting them at so many different angles at once and outmaneuvering and outswarming it. It's honestly kind of beautiful to watch. APM-wise, look at that. 477 average actions per minute here by the Zerg versus 316 from the Terran. That's where a lot of that speed is located, right? Now, I understand the numbers are a little inflated for Zerg, but there's no denying that Serral seems to be everywhere, and Cure seems to try and play catch-up. Every time it's Serral in the driver's seat here, and Cure playing a reactionary game. What a turnaround, though. I feel like not that long ago, at like the 15-minute mark, Cure was in a phenomenal spot. So it seemed to me like, yeah, it seems to me that Serral has flipped it around with these engagements over here in the top right-hand corner, where Cure constantly held on, but it was just very cost inefficient for him. Those fungal growths were very good, and he was caught off guard by the Brute Lords as well. Very cool to see. Cure's done a really good job, though, in this game, not really taking any critical damage, and he's certainly not out of this yet. The problem is that he needs to clean up this Zerg army over here, which is going to be difficult. And at the same time, he also needs to clean up whatever units come after this Zerg army. And at this point, Serral, I mean, he can effectively make this army a second time, or at least most of the army a second time. So it's really not just these units. A couple of nice abductions over here, solid fungal growth, slowing all of this down. Lovely play. Cure, though, has secured another base over here. Maybe I spoke too soon. If he can max out on only 21 SCVs, his army is gonna hit like an absolute truck. It's already massive, honestly. It's 139 army supply for Zerg versus 127 right here for Terran. Obviously, one thing going in favor right here of the Zerg is that these maps are still relatively unexplored. And I really think if Cure were to play a macro game like this again in the future, he would be taking this base a little bit sooner. Because he tried taking the base in the top right. I actually think the one over here on the left, in this game at the very least, seemed a lot easier for him to secure than this one over here in the top right. But I guess that Serral decided to take this one pretty early on, all things considered. And then he decided, you know what, I guess I'll take the one in the top right if that's the case. I believe that over time, Terrans will probably figure out how to defend on maps like this a little bit more comfortably. Since we have 9 new maps in a new map pool, it's gonna take a while before players figure that out. And those changes can make all the difference, right? Because if Cure could have secured one more mineral line in this match, I think it would have looked entirely different. Those Brute Lords, though, are looking nice and speedy, don't they? Ay, ay, ay. They're only like 10% faster. It really isn't that much. Maybe 15%, I'm not exactly sure. I still don't think they're a great unit, but flipping from lurkers, from roaches and ravagers, into lurker hydra, into lurker hydraling bane, with infestor viper for support, into suddenly a bunch of brute lords, with more zergling run-bys. I mean, honestly beautiful. We're not even maxed out in upgrades yet. Anyways, Cure does have this base. He's desperately trying to make as big an army as possible. I think his best bet in this match is to try and just make one very large army and then try to bulldoze her towards the other side. It looks like Serral, though, at this point has set his sights on, well, this expansion over here. This is the final base. We have some neural parasites going down as well. A couple of the liberators here, yeah, are not going to be able to work in favor of the Terran anymore. He decides to re-siege them. Banelings rolling into Thors. I don't think that's quite optimal, but we have got so many units reinforcing all of this. This is Serral saying, yo, get out of my game. 16 Hydras and 74 Lings on the back of this. I actually think that was a little over-eager right there. Yeah, he was hunting for some of the SCVs over here too, but rolling Banes into Thor certainly does not seem like the best way to go about forcing the Terran out of the match. That just seemed unnecessarily expensive, and that probably brought those resources lost more in favor of the Terran than they used to be. But here's what I was talking about earlier. The Zerg reinforcements now have arrived. He's more than doubling his opponent's army supply. Blue Flame Hellbats are nice, but there's just not enough stuff available right here for Cure anymore. He hits GG on the keyboard, and it's Serral who obtains the victory.